All right, everyone, we've got some more salt coming from the Democratic Party, particularly with this still technically outstanding race for Pennsylvania, with McCormick, of course. Chuck Schumer doesn't want to invite him to orientation, despite the fact that the race there has already been called in the GOP's favor by pretty much every lamestream outlet, and they have no reason to lie about that because you know that most of them wouldn't want McCormick to be the winner, because he's, a Republican and, Hitler and all of these other things, supposedly. You've got a technically outstanding race, but you've got a wide enough gap and few enough votes still to be counted that it's self-evident that McCormick has won. And Schumer comes out and says, well, he's not allowed to show up for orientation. I think some other member of Congress is threatening to effectively escort him there to a Senate orientation. So the Democrats are just being salty. Chuck Schumer's sad. He's completely lost the plot. He knows he's at that age now. He's not going to be in Congress much longer. I would say if I were Schumer, I would just chuckle, as I sip on the vodka bottle that's inevitably behind his Senate desk. Sip that, chuckle about the fact that your political career outshined Nancy Pelosi's because she was always treating you like a yappy lapdog, and just call it a day. You got to get over it at some point. Why do I sense some election denialism? Race has already been called, but you're pretending that the call was never actually made. Again, including by groups that are clearly more sympathetic towards the Democratic Party, like the AP, or fucking CNN. I believe they've called that race too. It doesn't take a genius to figure out the inevitable end result there. Schumer's like that, though. He's sort of a sad sack more than anything else. Like with Nancy Pelosi. Have you ever seen their dynamic? When they were both leading, so Schumer's leading the Senate Dems, Nancy Pelosi leads the House Dems. She leads him around anytime that they're in public together. Literally, like physically leads him around. She will always walk in front. They are not co-equal. And the way he sort of hunches down, you can tell that he knows he's a bitch that knows his place, basically. And Nancy Pelosi is top dog. I am sure that she has reminded him of this on multiple occasions. But pretending that McCormick hasn't won at some point is nothing more than sour grapes. We're seeing a lot of those lately. Sour grapes and salt. Ew, not necessarily the world's greatest combination, but we've got both in surplus at the moment. The salt mines are definitely open for business. I see the weirdest shit over the last few days anytime I go on the internet. Becomes a little bit much. That's why I cycled out some of the political stuff in order to talk about like science news and things like that. I'm like, holy shit. I'm excited too. We get the return of Trump, and Zeldin's going to be running the EPA and all these wonderful things, but goddamn, you got to take a break sometime, at least a little bit. Chuck Schumer, meanwhile, he's like the Energizer Bunny of salt. He just can't get over it, I suppose. It just looks bad. Sort of breaches decorum when you think about it. Pretending that the race is outstanding and basically just snubbing the man for having won in a close election. And that particular seat goes to the GOP. But he's not actually able to take orientation. By the way, since he has officially been declared the winner, election uncertified as of yet, like that fucking matters, aren't you breaching some sort of ethics code or decorum or something like that? Usually the upper chamber is the one that's more solemn, but I guess we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens with this. Schumer's always been salty, although I have a feeling when Nancy Pelosi lost her gavel, secretly, and you could tell, you could look on his face, he was happy about that fact. He's like, well, I'm still marginally in control here for the next couple of years, and you're not. Hee. Oh, you can tell she probably threw plates at his head or something like that. They're sort of like an old DC couple. They might as well just forsake their spouses and shack up together, because everyone knows that dynamic would be one hell of a weird one. So I'm looking at this story and seeing the snubbing, sort of being an asshole to an incoming member of Congress for absolutely no reason other than the snub itself. You can't prevent an individual who's been elected from eventually taking their seat, so to speak. Schumer's just sad because, he's not going to be running jack shit for very long. He's got a couple more glorious months to pretend that he's still relevant in the modern political age, and then he's going to be, shuffled on his merry way. And by the way, the Democrats are definitely preparing to purge their ranks right now, and not without good reason. because these people are literally holding the party back and preventing it from effectively being electable. They were supposedly running against the more mentally damaged version of Mussolini, and they still got curb stomped. Nonetheless, a lot of them don't really have the self-awareness to really perform a proper autopsy of why they lost the election. Schumer is definitely one of them. He seems to be, he's like the eternal optimist, then gets grumpy when he inevitably loses. I mean, for her part, at the very least, Nancy Pelosi is a little bit more pragmatic and willing to bitch and complain when things go wrong and point out some of the obvious reasons why they did. Schumer's a little bit more on the quiet side, generally, mainly because Nancy's too busy talking. And I'm looking at this with rapt attention, because, again, this sort of political snubbery, if it had been done by the Republicans, let's say the roles were reversed, and Trump was involved, especially in any meaningful capacity, or anyone that was adjacent or associated with him, you know that this would be bigger news. They'd be complaining about how, well, no, now it's a time for unity and all of these other things. But it's Schumer doing it, so most of it's absent of reporting, actually. I find that funny. It's a total lie by omission. And it's not that the story's not circulating, but they carefully put it on page B. They have a habit of doing that sort of thing now, don't they? That's about all. Peace out.